Starts and sits on Fantasy Football Today Express. What's up and welcome. Yeah, I didn't like that one either, Dave. Adam and Dave here talking about week 16. I don't know why I get so confused. Week 16 starts and sits. I'm going to look at the most activated players who were on the bench that are now being started. But before we do that, we do have some beat the waiver wire. 2 of you need to beat the waiver wire for next week, right? Well, 4 of you, but only will matter for only 2 of you. Dave, who should we be looking at to beat the waiver wire?
Let's think positively. If we win this week, we're playing in week 17. That's either the championship or semifinal, depending on how ridiculous your league is. I'll start with DSTs. Colts are pretty highly rostered already. People have beaten you to the punch on them and the Buccaneers, both of them favorable matchups. The Dolphins play at Cleveland in week 17. That's a 52% availability right there. And I don't know if you can trust the Raiders at 92% available. They do take on the Saints. It's a little risky, but that defense has been playing a little bit better lately. Also, the Chargers, highly rostered already. You might be able to get them on Tuesday, depending on how your league is. At quarterback, the case for Aaron Rodgers at Buffalo in week 17 is this. If he looks good again, and if Buffalo's defense struggles again, then you'll have more confidence to start Aaron Rodgers. He's available in about half of CBS Sports leagues. There's a lot of other quarterbacks that are just like, I don't feel great about. Aiden O'Connell, Drake May, Mason Rudolph, Mac Jones and Bryce Young. But I do think it might be worth the stash. And this is if you're struggling at quarterback or if your possible opponent in week 17 is struggling. Michael Penix, 61% available. He plays the Commanders in week 17. The list for running backs, this isn't necessarily a week 17 list. This is just guys I want to stash. Tyjae Spears is still 40% available. If he ends up starting for Tennessee, he's a must. You got to get him. Kendre Miller, 36% available. Should be the Saints running back the rest of the season. Patrick Taylor for the 49ers, 52% available. And in those smaller leagues, Alexander Madison, 30% available. Receivers, Jalen McMillan, what's wrong with you guys? He's still available in 51% of leagues. I would go and grab him. I would consider stashing Romeo Doubs, 35% available, because what if he has another big game for the Packers? Then you'll feel a lot more confident in him being their number one guy. Other wide receivers to stash, Chris Olave, especially if you have an IR spot, 37% available. And then Marquise Brown, Jalen Coker. I've been saying Keon Coleman's name. Those 3 would be on the list. You can throw Rome Odunze in there as well. Tight end, Brenton Strange, still available in about 70% of CBS Sports leagues. Gets Tennessee in week 17. Not an easy matchup, but one where I think the Jaguars will have a tough time running, and that means checkdowns from Mac Jones. Brenton Strange gets those. I will still bang the drum. It'll just be a quiet bang for Jake Ferguson. 40% available. He's got Philadelphia entering this week. Philadelphia has allowed 9.7 half PPR points to a tight end 4 times, 5 games. Isaiah Likely is the other name. 57% available. Takes on Houston. Entering this week, Houston's allowed at least 8.6 half PPR points to 4 of the past 5 tight ends. And what if Rashad Bateman is out this week, next week? Maybe Isaiah Likely does see an uptick in targets.
Okay, good stuff. And let's get to the week 16 start-sit, dilemmas and talk about the players who are being activated, who are being put in lineups. First of all, you mentioned the Colts DST as a stash, but they're actually the most activated. They've gone from 10% started to 50% started for their matchup against the Titans. The Bills have been horrible defensively, but their DST is going from 33% started to 72% started. Do you like the Colts or the Bills DST this week?
I like the Bills better. I think they're both startable options. I would start the Packers and the Falcons over both of them.
Jerome Ford is the most activated non-DST, and it makes sense.
Yes.
Who would you start Jerome Ford over?
Start him over Najee Harris, Brian Robinson. I would start him over the Raiders running backs. I would start him over Kendre Miller. Certainly over Zach Charbonnet if Ken Walker is active. But he's kind of a middle to low end number 2 fantasy running back.
I actually am going to start Brian Robinson Jr. over Jerome Ford. Just let me know.
Jerome Ford's playing Cincinnati, and he's got a good workload in front of him. Should play about 2/3 of the snaps. Might have a tough time scoring a touchdown, certainly from inside the 5. That could go to Deontay Foreman. But I sent you the information on Dorian Thompson-Robinson. His accuracy on throws 10-plus yards downfield is terrible. He should be leaning on Jerome Ford quite a bit. should get at least 3 catches in the game. He has what did you say? 11 catches in 3 games.
Yeah.
With DTR last year. Okay, that's not so bad. I can do the math on that. It's almost 4 a game. If that helps provide a safe floor for a boom bust back like Ford.
Bucky Irving is on the most activated list.
Jamie Eisenberg start of the week, and I think I like him more than Jamie does. I expect a high-scoring game between the Bucs and the Cowboys, and Bucky Irving's just playing well. We know that he can win on the ground. We know that he can win through the air, and I don't think it's a cinch that Rachaad White is getting every short yardage goal line carry for Tampa. Bucky could get in there as well.
Breece Hall is now up to 63% started from 39 last week. Do you have faith in Breece Hall?
I have faith if he isn't on the injury report, and that's what it seems like. I know that there's some confusion there, but if he's cleared and good to go, then yeah, I think Breece Hall should see it, certainly an uptick in touches, and hopefully he looks better than he did last week. But the matchup against the Rams, look, a lot of teams have run the ball very well against the Rams, 49ers notwithstanding last week.
And then we've got Kendry Miller. Let's talk about him.
Let's talk about him. I love the talent. Don't love the situation. Although I think the offensive line there is good, but the Packers' run defense has been great over their last 5 games. 3.7 yards per carry. Can Kendry Miller score a touchdown? I think it's always possible when it comes to a running back that should touch the ball as much as Kendry Miller is going to touch the ball, but game script could work against him, could take carries away from him in the second half. And so I would pump the brakes on Miller as more of like a desperation running back this week, not even a top 24 running back. All those running backs that I talked about as guys who I would sit for Jerome Ford, almost all of them I would start ahead of Kendry Miller.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and come back with your questions in the YouTube chat on FFT Express. Here we go. Let's finish up with Mel saying, wait, did Dave say the Falcons over the Bills?
I did.
All right. Njoku, if he plays, Kraft or Strange, PPR?
If Njoku plays, I will start Njoku, but I would not expect Njoku to go. Count on Strange being your pick in full PPR.
Brian Robinson Jr. or Breece Hall?
If Breece is cleared and good to go, I'm going to start him over Brian Robinson. I don't like the matchup for Brian Robinson.
We got Pacheco or Brian Robinson Jr. and Patrick Taylor or Spears?
I don't like the matchup for Brian Robinson, but I don't like what I've seen from Isaiah Pacheco where he's sharing with 2 other running backs. And honestly, the Texans matchup, it's not the worst in the world, but they did just shut down Devon Achane on the ground last week. I would start Robinson over Pacheco, and I would go with Spears on the bench over Taylor. Am I cutting Pacheco for Spears? I'll tell you what, I might consider that because if Tony Pollard is out, I'll start Spears over both Robinson and Pacheco. But Tony Pollard's got to be out for that to happen.
Pick my DST, Cardinals, Eagles, Lions, or Raiders?
It's the Eagles, and I know it's a difficult matchup against the Commanders, but I like to count on strong defenses, and I think they're one of them. Again, this is another situation where I would double-check the waiver wire for Packers and Falcons DSTs at minimum ahead of Philadelphia.
Ramondre, Madison, Patrick Taylor. Pick one.
I might end up going with Madison because Ramondre Stevenson, very game script dependent, and this is a game where I think the Patriots are going to be chasing points, and that's usually very bad for Ramondre Stevenson, who's almost a touchdown or bust running back to begin with. And you could almost see Alexander Madison. We talked about this on the main show. Jamie Eisenberg was way into Madison because of the matchup against Jacksonville. It's favorable for the Raiders. Raiders' offensive line isn't a disaster. Maybe he goes out there, gets 12, 14 carries, certainly has a shot to find the end zone. Just big question mark about how much he'll play on passing downs.
Last one here, Dowdle or Breece Hall?
And McMillan is definitely worth a stash, possibly a start. I'll take Dowdle over Hall, even if Hall is good to go.
All right. Hope you're good to go with those lineups for Week 16. For Dave, I'm Adam. Have a great weekend, everybody. Talk to you on Sunday on FFT Express.